All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the show. I got Nathan Manel. Is that correct? Am I pronouncing that
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. All right. Well, he's got a success story that he wants to share with us. You know what? We go right to the nitty gritty. Tell us, what were you dealing with? What were your symptoms? Give us a gist of, the things you were going through.
Yeah, started at a really early age when I was in elementary school. I got hit in the eye with a basketball and it got inflamed and wouldn't go down. And so that caused me to start seeing some more specialists and then was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, uveitis in the eye, very, very early on. Started taking methotrexate, a lot of those kind of
Oh,
drugs for
that's a
that stuff.
heavy duty. That's a
Yeah,
heavy duty
since
drug.
since I was in elementary school. I was taking that and had a lot of eye problems throughout my life. It would just come and go through different seasons, and my eye would get super inflamed. So by the time I was in college, I had had a cataract surgery, two glaucoma surgeries,
Wow.
retina surgery, all on my right eye. And it was just very intense. That takes you out of a lot of stuff.
So it was
So
only one eye?
yep, my right eye. And
That's interesting.
yeah, and then the symptoms started kind of moving around. I would have back issues that led to a diagnosis of ankylosing spondylitis. And I guess actually the problem with one eye inflammation is actually somewhat common in ankylosing
Right.
spondylitis, which is interesting.
Hmm.
And yeah, I that was it. Like the back would get me or my eye would get me. Little things would nag at me longer than what seemed normal, my right knee every once in a while,
Right.
different things. So it's humbled me. Uh,
Yeah.
I it's been a big part of my life, and it's just led me on to this journey. And to be honest, I don't think I really was awake and aware of everything that I could do for it until
Right.
like about a year and a half ago. So I was just treating it the Western
So how
medicine
many
route.
years? How many years would you think that you're dealing with chronic issues since you were a kid? How old were you?
I was probably 6 or 7, and I'm 30 now. So
Wow, that's a
20,
long time.
25, yeah, 20 years at least.
The thing is, it's
Um,
not, we most of us have been through a long period of time where we go through the symptoms and they keep growing and growing, but there's so much misinformation out there that it's not our fault. It's like we didn't know. We were surrounded by right bad information. So yeah, that's did you deal with any anxiety or gut issues or anything like that?
yeah, yeah. So there's, the big stuff overshadows all the others, like when I think about my symptoms, I think about my eye and maybe my
Right.
back. But, like during COVID, I went into the ER for an ulcer,
Right.
different things like that. I had stomach problems. And even when I was younger, if symptoms were to move around and I started feeling gut stuff, I kind of felt this like resistance to go to then the specialist for the gut because I knew if I were to see them while I was flared up, then I would just get a diagnosis of Crohn's or whatever. That's what it felt like to me. Who knows,
Right.
but
Yeah.
um, it's a tricky thing. So yeah, some gut stuff, definitely acid reflux. It sounds so low key, not very like significant compared to eye surgeries and stuff, but that was like a daily issue for me that was just so annoying and hard to
Yeah.
deal with, and that's come and gone through different seasons of my life. So that's a digestive thing, that's a symptom of a digestive problem. So yeah, that's the whole run through of the symptom stuff. That's
And then, okay, then I'm sure you were dealing with some anxiety, health anxiety, maybe some OCD looping thoughts. Maybe that's usually the regular.
Yeah, 100%. I lived in it. I lived in the
Yeah.
cycle of that. I still last week I had a really significant symptom pop up in my
Yeah.
left eye for the first time.
Right.
The vision in my right eye is not great after surgeries and so much stuff over the years and the inflammation and all this stuff. My right eye has just been not great. So to have my left eye vision impaired, I mean, I couldn't drive. Like I'm still not driving even right now. And I had
Yep.
emailed you like it's a little bit tricky for me to think of myself as a success story right now as I'm like coming out of one of I feel like the worst flares of my life. But in the same
Yeah.
hand, like I've experienced this flare in a different way. I feel like I'm a different person going through it, and it's very
Right.
interesting to be aware of my kind of subconscious gut reactions in the loops that I find myself in. And I'm
Do you
still
find,
going into them. I'm just starting to catch
yeah,
myself now.
right. Do you
You
find
know,
that since you've been going through this mind body stuff for, let's say, year and a half, that
mm,
you're becoming more indifferent to the regular eye problem, so that maybe the brain is trying to get your attention with a new symptom with
yeah,
the other eye, so it knows it's going to get your attention. You're freaking out. You're giving it all the attention to the perceived dangers because your alarms are going off. When before it was losing its alarm supply with the one eye, it's like, oh fuck, I'm not getting his attention enough. Like I mean, that we're used to. He's starting to do these methods, so let's switch it up. Oh, let's fuck with his other eye. Let's do it. Boom. Now you're putting a lot of focus into it. The baseline goes up, right? It's got you right where it needs you to be investigating for danger, right? So it makes sense. Would you say that that's kind of what's happening?
yeah. I've started to think about it almost from like a spiritual perspective of trying to, yeah,
Yeah.
like the trying to get my attention. And I'm still trying to make sense of it because it feels like such a villain when you're dealing with inflammation and stuff. Like you know what I mean? Like it feels like
Yeah.
why is this wanting to hurt me?
Right.
I'm just now starting to come around to like maybe it's not trying to hurt me, maybe it's just wanting my attention to fix to help me, some sort of
It is.
spiritual development, in a way. Like and I will say like I had some good moments where I had a moment even just like a month ago where my left eye started, I could feel the inflammation, but it wasn't a full flare up. And
Right.
my vision got a little blurry. It was nothing compared to what happened to me last week. But that set me off. And it took all
Yeah.
my attention, fear, whoosh, like, because now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like you said, I mean, it got all, now my vision when both eyes are open is affected. Before, when it was just my right eye, my brain was making the difference. Like, it didn't really affect me as much.
Right.
And and so that was, I mean, that shook me. And I had a lot of calls with Dr. Tova, who I started kind of seeing and talking to. Um,
Yeah.
when I started finding out about TMS and just realizing a lot of these kind of truths that I'd felt on my journey without even knowing TMS existed. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, like just to compare that little tiny micro flare in my left eye a month ago to the massive flare I had last week, I was sitting yesterday and we had like a little bonfire with my fiance and her sister and in our backyard, and my eyesight was blurry, and I just felt okay. I was just okay with it. Like I just trusted that like my body
Yeah.
heals. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm not gonna focus on is it blurrier than yesterday? Is it gonna come
Right.
back? All that stuff. And I wasn't even able to do that a month ago with my little mini flare, but now I'm just surrendering more, if that makes sense.
Right. Allowing it to be there, let it do its thing,
Yeah.
right? Becoming almost like friends with it, so it's you build the leverage of indifference, which finally allows your baseline to come down. And when it comes down, it sends less alarms, which you won't ruminate as much, you won't uh investigate for danger as much, and the body finally gets into ease instead of dis-ease and survival, right? When it finally is allowed to relax and calm down, then everything comes back into place on its own, and you don't even have to micromanage it. It just does what it's supposed to do, right? But when you're doing that, right, it goes, no, we got to get his attention. We're not there yet. We're not the baseline's not there yet. We still need to get his attention. So it's gonna throw the kitchen sink at you, especially with things that it knows will get your attention because it's you. You're you. But for me, I thought it was like, oh, it doesn't know. It can't be that smart. How does it know my secrets, my worst fears? How does it know it? Because it's me. Of course it knows. So it's gonna throw it right in my face. And it works every time. It works brilliantly. There's nothing wrong with your brain. It's working exactly the way it's supposed to. It just like we said earlier, like you said, we perceive it as it's playing tricks. It's being mean to me. It's abusing me. It's driving me crazy, but it's actually doing whatever it can to get your attention. It doesn't care if we suffer. All it cares is to keep us alive, and it will do everything it can to show you that there's a liger behind you, right? So if it means to give you a pain here or wherever to get your attention, it's going to do it. It has to do it. And then in the beginning we freak out. Oh, I had my freakouts. I went to the ER 3 times a week. I had my reassurance things that I needed. Google or friends kept asking questions, and I became a reassurance junkie. But then eventually I had to stop. And then eventually, you face the alarms. You allow them to be there. So I went a little bit off track there, but anyway, when you were younger, were you dealing with any situational things that put you in a stress response, or was it that basketball that started it all?
I think the basketball was an opportunity for it to
Yeah,
manifest. I think if I got hit in the knee, I would have started with a knee problem
right.
or the other. Yeah, I'm convinced of that now. But and I did have stressor, and I think so this just to like I think this will be good context and it's kind of interesting. This last flare up I had really like kind of brought me to my knees, honestly. Like I went and I couldn't drive with my vision. I was freaked out, upset, sad, angry, all this, it took me for
Yeah,
the whole ride again. I've been on that ride
yep,
several times. I even know that ride happens and it still got me.
yeah,
And I took that ride in the last week and a half. I've been staying at my mom's place, and thankfully, I mean, and we have a great relationship. And I'm getting married in October, so my fiance stayed with me at my mom's basement, and we're just hanging out. And I was just like, they'd ask me, "How are you doing?" And I just start crying. I was just like, I was so upset,
yeah.
and I feel like, it was interesting going through that and being around my mom and talking about the past more because she has memories of me being very anxious and stressed out as a
Right.
child. And, I think, I have some memories of being stressed out, and my parents separated when I was very young and moved. And so, all of a sudden, I had a core group of family in California, and then we move, and then my dad leaves, and I'm a young child, and I witness all this stuff happening, and all of a sudden I'm in a new state with one family member instead of five or six, and I think that I don't know,
It all adds up.
yeah, I
It like
think
it doesn't come from thin air. People
yeah,
don't get eye problems, knee problems, problems in general just because. It's usually that's why I always ask, like, so what happened? Tell me what really then then the stories come out. And they always come out. There's always something.
and
It's fascinating.
I think I was a ticking time bomb for that. I think the stress had built up to my body that it needed an outlet.
Yeah.
Or some way to, warn me or communicate with me because in my mind, I wasn't aware, but I think subconsciously I was in survival mode with that stuff. And I think, I'm curious to your opinion on this because I flip-flop a little bit. There are some times where I feel like, maybe the flare-up is like, are you familiar with the pain body, the Eckhart Tolle power of now kind of like premise of this kind of like inner, pain that's talking to you? I mean, it's the same thing we've been talking
Yeah.
about, but I like using the term pain body to like identify it.
Yeah.
Uh, there are times where I think, oh, it's in survival mode, and that's why I'm having the flare. But actually now, like I don't know if I believe that. I think my mindset was in a place where I was in survival mode, and it's like, why aren't you taking shelter? Like I think for the last several months, I hope this is all like coming together, but like I think the last
Yep.
several months I was getting in bad habits with my stress and my mental state and the loops and the patterns. And I'm a big fan of Dispenza's work and the theory that the body is objective. It does not know the difference between the lion actually being in front of you or just the thought of
Right.
the lion being in front of you. The body reacts the same way. And I would just
Well,
get in.
For me, it could be a bunch of things. It might not be a specific thing. I think, like I've said in many things, it could be a cumulative things throughout your life that added up that filled up your bucket, right? And the body keeps a score. Something's got to give, right?
Yeah.
This is my favorite drawing. I draw this like 10 times a week. Um, then we got our baseline, right? Usually when we see a tiger and the tiger is dead, it comes back down and we're back to standby. But what happens in through life when we're in survival for long periods of time, for whatever reason, life keeps throwing us curveballs. We stay there because it's our new baseline. It gets hardwired there with neural pathways, and that's our new survival state. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just the thing that the brain, looks at and goes, we need to be in that state to make sure he's got the most chances of survival. And then because of that, if we're in that state for a long time, plus our buckets are full, symptoms will manifest, right? Your body's kind of buffering. It's kind of like it's not working efficiently, but it's working exactly the way it's supposed to keep you alive, right? It's like got all these things that it's dealing with at the same time, but it's keeping you alive doing this job. But if it's in that state for a long time, you're going to have symptoms come up. And especially when it's perceiving danger that it's not there, but we've been programming it there for 30 years of our lives there, it's still going to run those alarms. It's going to be like, oh, there's tigers here. Well, there isn't. I don't care. I'm not taking that chance. Look at the past 30 years. I'm still going to throw you still going to throw you, alarms,
Yeah.
right? So if you haven't done the work, this is where I'm different within TMS. TMS, we're a little bit different. Where I think you got to put the work in to empty your allostatic loads to a reasonable amount, and you got to do the work by bringing your baseline back down to standby, and that means steps, programs where every day you're doing daily visuals, you're elevating, whatever it is to work the behind the scenes load so they eventually come back to zero. Because if you don't, you're just managing symptoms. You're able to turn them off, which is great, but something else is going to pop up. The eye thing might go off, but this will pop up. Pain might come here. This will gut issues. Like it's always going to move around. It has to because it needs to get your attention. Because you just turned off the supply here. It's like, fuck, I got to get his attention somewhere else. So it's going to pop up somewhere else, right? And then seeing that, I'm like, well, you got to do the work. There is work to be done. And especially when we don't do the work, you're managing all your life. And then new curveballs come in life, right? Well, you're getting married. That could be a positive stress, right? So let's add that up to the pile, right? Symptoms will pop up. Baseline goes up. It could be a positive thing. It could be a bunch of things all together, right? And that's the thing. You're at a threshold where, well, I'm feeling good for the past 2 years, but you're right underneath the ice. Anything small pops up, symptoms pop up again, and you're back to
Hmm.
square fucking Z again, right? And that's the problem when people they do the work just as long until they feel okay. I'm okay, I'm all right. And then something traumatic happens. A family member passes away, your dog passes away, blue, blue, blah, blue happens. Boom, you're back with symptoms again. And you're always dealing with doing the work just to get the symptoms to go away. Instead of fully regulating and being free, a curveball comes in life and you're okay still. Look, I'm fine. The baseline, the Liger's gone. I'm back to standby. I'm okay. I'm free. It becomes almost like a lifestyle for me. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I'm going to keep doing it for the rest of my life. And
Yeah.
I don't deal with symptoms anymore. I don't deal with because I'm at that state now. I'm ahead of it, right? Because life's going to keep throwing us bullshit curveballs. It's gonna. That's why we're here to experience some shit, right? And then it's better to be ahead of the game than to constantly be battling shit and trying to turn off alarms and that's what I believe from what I've experienced with the bullshit that I went through, my shitstorm, whatever you want to call it.
I love your analogy with the water bottle because a lot of times I'll tell, my loved ones when I'm kind of going through and having different symptoms, like it feels like, the ship's leaking and I'm plugging holes and then the water just comes and pours out of some other hole, like that's exactly what happened. And I could tell you, like, even physically, like my right eye had a big flare up about a month ago. And so stuff's going on in my life right now that's like getting me in high gear. And the
Yeah.
right eye was so bad that I go in and then I got and I've done this several times in my life. over the years. I get a steroid injection, in my eyeball to handle
Oh,
that inflammation. Well, when it gets that bad, I need it just to function and just to like be able, just to handle my daily life. But the problem is it plugs that hole and then whoosh, that comes. And I swear the next day I got that after that steroid injection, my right knee swelled up, got really inflamed. I didn't do anything to
yeah,
my right knee. And
right.
it's the same thing. And sometimes it'll move even if I'm not the one plugging the hole. Something will happen and it'll gravitate somewhere else. So it's not a random occurrence right now that my left eye is talking to me because my right eye still has steroids floating around in it from the injection a month ago. It's being
Yeah.
numbed to the
And
communication
that's
that my
stressful
body's.
too.
Oh
The
yeah.
needle, the procedures, that's
Oh yeah.
stressful. That brings your baseline up.
Yes.
So, if this is already, you're like, oh, I'm already fucked with this. You can't give me any more alarms. The brain's gonna be like, oh fuck, okay, well, let's get his knee now because he just had that happen. We had to survive through it. We had
Yeah.
the anticipatory anxiety before that. He knew he was scheduled for the Thursday, and it was a week away. And we have a whole week of fucking pushing this baseline up of fucking ah, right. And then after it happens, you go during it while it's keeping you alive while you're going through it. Then after it happens, so then after this, you're not your baseline was already at 1,000. Now it's at 1,010, right? So what do you expect? Like the body, everything is happening exactly the way it's expected. It makes sense. Everything that makes sense.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a wild ride. I mean, it's made me,
Yeah,
like I said, it goes so deep and something's happening. The body is so smart
yeah,
that
it is.
I can't deny a spiritual component to this, and it's been a thing that
Yeah,
I'm exploring recently. That it's such an intense thing to go through. I mean, it's like I mean, I know you've experienced it because I've
yeah,
heard your stories of the intense stuff you've been going through or had gone through in the past.
yeah.
When it takes all your attention, there's like this weird, it's a gift and a curse, and like the gift of it is it takes you out of the matrix for a while because you can't get just
You're
distracted by
forced.
football
Yeah.
games and entertainment and all this stuff because you're just in so much pain and you're trying to survive in a weird way. I mean, it
That's a
zaps
good
you
way
out
to
of the
put it.
matrix for a little bit. And then if you can recover, man, I think you kind of come to life with a different perspective.
Recovery happens when you've had enough training to realize and trust that this is the matrix that you're coming out of because the reality is lying to you all the time and you're still
Hmm.
falling for the bullshit, right? If you Google 99% of everything you Google says you can't cure this, you can't cure that, right? So imagine me, I was dealing with 70 symptoms. I was dealing with every fucking thing I was dealing with was telling me no, 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 you're stuck with this. So I had to dig deep. This is where the spirituality comes in to to find the answers within and use that as my guide through the invisible bridge. And the only way I could recover is to really truly believe that everything was bullshit because you're walking up a mountain in flip-flops. That's how much resistance you're dealing
Mm.
with. And you have to do it because if you don't, you're just going to stay there. So
Yeah.
you have to be focused and keep going while the shit's hitting you fucking sideways going up the
Yeah.
mountain,
Yeah.
right? And the lava's going this way, right? And
Hmm.
it's like there's no lava, there's no fucking the bridge is invisible, but I'm gonna cross it. And then with trial and error, you build a leverage, and then you realize, wow, this is a matrix, and I'm awakening. This is an awakening, and then you learn from it, and then it becomes powerful, and you become like Neo, the one where you're able to fucking
Hmm.
the bullets fucking drop, right? And you're just like oof, oof, having a sandwich.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
The bullets to me, like lately, have been emails. Like I'll get an email and it'll be like work related, and it'll be
Yeah.
revisions from a client or something like that that I don't agree with or whatever it is, and it'll
Yeah.
trigger me. Like it'll feel like it's right about
Yeah.
to, and I'm just noticing more. Like I'm a humble student. I'm early still on my process. I know the process never ends, but like I am enjoying catching myself earlier. And like the email thing happened today. And it's like whoosh, it started
Yeah.
generating stress, it started generating
And
anger, the old,
you
and
need
then
these things though.
I
You
can
need the
realize it.
bullshit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
need the bullshit in order to uh it's like training. Like every time I felt like shit, every time I had symptoms, I needed that to give an opportunity to update my alarm system. So if I didn't have that, I would never move forward. So
Mhm.
when you open that door, you're gonna be faced with the alarms and the ugliness of the old program. So every time it happens, you fucking need it. And then you're gonna have the first 10 times you're gonna have the freakouts, but eventually you do build the leverage, right? It's like you have your setback, you move 5 steps back, and then eventually you move 10 steps forward. But that's the journey. That's why the journey for me took me 3 years because of those setbacks and falling on my face, making mistakes, doing the wrong thing. But I needed to do the wrong thing so I got the contrast so I knew what the right thing was. And we need that. It's like that
Mhm.
perfect balance. And eventually you'll keep going and you will recover. And the other side is just like, wow, you've learned some shit. This is we need to go through it because when you get to the other side, you've earned your recovery and you see the world totally different. And it's a spiritual thing. You're forced to be awakened spiritually. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know if this happened to you, but like I started looking back at past experiences
Yeah.
and realizing that I was the common denominator of all those experiences, all those issues, all those, arguments, whatever it is, all throughout. Once I'm 30. I hopefully still have a lot of life, left to live, but I have enough years now that I can look back and I've had several different blow up arguments. I've had several different relationships dissolve or whatever, things like that. And I can now look and be like, wow, those people were very different than each other. So those arguments that I had, I was the only common denominator between these two things at very different times and periods with different
Yeah.
people. It's like you just kind of start realizing how much of it is
It's like a
you and
movie.
your responsibility. Yeah, yeah.
You're like in a
It's
movie. You're the character, you're the script writer, and everybody else is supporting your movie. And you have like your soul family. Well, this is some people might not believe this stuff, but I do anyway. You have your soul family, and then you get the filler people that are just there to the background. They're just the background actors that just support your movie. So, and it's interesting that for me, going through this journey, I use the same methods that I learned going through this journey with my everyday life, with business, with relationships, with manifesting and creating the life that I want, because it's the same thing. It's like a law, a universal law that how I recovered is exactly how I'm going to use the same tools to, like a magic wand, create the life that I want. And if I have something fall on my lap that I don't prefer, I'm going to be able to learn from it. And maybe there's a different message in here, a hidden thing that I have to learn from it. I don't, you know, in my past self, I would look at it as something like it's horrible. I would ruminate on it and make it the worst that it can be. But now I look at it as an opportunity of, what does this mean? What can I do with this? This is probably there in my path. This obstacle is probably there to push me somewhere that's better, that I could, use. And, that's not necessarily just a negative thing. It has another meaning. And then
yeah,
you literally can create your reality
yeah. Oh,
and
yeah,
you trust your intuition, right? You also believe what your gut says, and you've actually listened to it and trust it 1000%. When before we go, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to do it, right? We fight with our
mhm.
intuition. Now you start to believe it and follow it.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, it's funny when you get, I mean, as I'll just speak for myself, when I've started getting into this work now, I didn't expect the rabbit hole to go so deep. I just thought, like, I came across the TMS book. Well, and I'll go back a little bit too. You might appreciate this just as a side
Yeah.
story for me, because up until like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I mean, I was very convinced that this was purely medical, autoimmune, like I had no awareness of anything other than my body was against me and I just had to deal with it and figure out the right pharmaceuticals to use. And I had a moment where I was in line I was taking this biologic, which is like immune suppressant drug that I'd inject in my leg every like month or every week, maybe at one point. And I
Yeah.
was in line at the hospital downtown where I live, and I had just moved. And the hospital downtown, like big metropolitan hospitals, those pharmacies aren't as quaint as the local CVS's and stuff. I mean, it's like old, it's packed with people of all sorts of issues. I mean, it just kind of feels like a dark place. And I'm sitting in line
Yep.
there And I was just like, I'm done with this. I just felt it in my soul, my spirit. Like, I'm just tired of this. Like, I don't know what the other option is, but I'm not going to
Mm.
pick up these drugs. And like, I was they were going to hand them to me, and I just left. And,
Yeah.
uh, and then I went, you know, and I did my thing, and I started searching what are some other options. And then I got into like the gut microbiome thing. And then that led me down the functional medicine path, which
Yeah.
has been advantageous to me. Like, and then I went and saw a functional medicine doctor and started learning more about that stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I thought, I'm going to solve this thing with diet. It's just the food. The whole time it's been the food.
Yeah.
And I did the food, and it really did help. Like, and it still
Oh yeah.
does. It really
Well,
did
I
help.
hear you. Yeah.
And, you know, I did the thing where I dropped, you know, I was eating like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different things. I've heard your story is kind of similar, I think. And,
Yeah.
you know, it helped. And I was like, this is it. All I have to do is just eat plain chicken and broccoli and lettuce and, you know, whatever for the rest of my life. I'll be good. And then I was on a really good diet. I wasn't that hardcore with it. I've met some people that just do chicken and broccoli, and that's the only thing they eat now. But
Yeah. That's hard to
I
cope. That's a crazy coping mechanism.
well, and like it makes them, I think it works partly because it makes them feel safe. Like they believe in it. There is a component where like when you're inflamed, food will amplify or decrease the
Oh
inflammation.
yeah.
And so there's
I
this
was on the
dual
carnivore
thing.
diet. The carnivore
Okay,
diet helped
interesting.
me for 4 months.
Interesting.
But I'm
Yeah.
realizing now why it worked is because it gave my body a bit of a break because I only ate meat. I only ate once a day, and it was able to regulate other things that it didn't have a chance to. So my baseline, it kind of made my baseline move down a bit. So
Hmm.
because digestion, that's heavy duty. It takes a lot of energy. It's a
Yeah.
big load on the system. It's a lot of work for your limbic system, and if you give that a break, then the brain's like, all right, we can do other things. Oh, can catch up a little bit. Yeah, move that over here, put that over there. And then
Yeah.
you might notice that you start feeling better, your mood gets better, you start getting erections again, your
Mhm.
skin clears up, like everything, is in line. But then you're only eating meat. For the rest, you're avoiding, right? What are you telling your brain? You're avoiding
Yeah.
yourself from the danger. What am I doing?
Yeah. There's danger out there. Oh, and then you travel, and then you're like, how am I going to maintain this diet? And you're freaking
Oh yeah.
out about,
You're like, oh
and
fuck.
then you're back in a loop. And so you'll appreciate this. I think it's so fun. Like I'm starting to feel like there's almost like common levels of ascension through this path, and like a big first step for people is the diet, and they'll just change their food, whatever it is,
Yeah,
carnivore, vegan, whatever. And
yeah,
that's a honest first step, I think, that everybody kind of ends up making and has to like start with. And I think it helps because when you're sick, it's really easy to just fall into eating worse food that makes your inflammation even worse. You know, like it's just compounding the
yeah.
cycle. So I think it's interesting people start there. And then I was convinced that was it. And I went to New York. I do marketing. I do a lot of video commercial work. I direct commercials for a living. And
Nice.
I went to New York and had a production, and there were two friends of mine that I hired out, and or one of them was my business partner at the time, and then we hired another friend. And anyway, that production got super stressful, and I got stressful, and then it wound up in an argument with my business partner, and it was
Yeah.
a big blow up thing. And my diet was good, and we had this argument, and then literally like my eye, bam, bright red, inflammation. And I hadn't had inflammation in the eye for like a couple of years, 2 years.
Right.
And that was the first time it hit me that there was even an emotional component to this at all. I had never knew or
Right.
linked that until that moment where I was like, it has to be this because this just happened. And then I felt it. And that's what then kind of led me down the TMS rabbit hole,
Right.
which was kind of my second level, which was okay, you do the diet, which is all body.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, this isn't fixing everything. I still have this subtle feeling that I need more. And then I feel like the level two is like figuring out there's a mind body component. And then I thought,
Yeah.
okay, screw the food. It was never the food, it was only my mind. Let me get therapy, let me do the stuff. And worked with Dr. Tova Goldfein quite a bit over this last
Yeah.
year. And ever since that happened, and I remember the first call I had with her, not even diving into my like deep issues. It's like an introductory call, and we started talking about family stuff. And she asked me about my grandma who passed away, and I just started bawling. I didn't know I was like holding that stuff
Yeah.
in, and my eyes started clearing up. Like after that first call, I was like, wow, this feels like doing steroid eye
Right.
drops for like I just did steroid eye drops for like an hour.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I know this is legit. And then I just kept going down that. And now I don't know what I would call level 3, but like I think there's some extra deeper stuff with the, if you're really screwed up, like, I shouldn't say screwed up. If you have a lot of symptoms and you're
Oh,
really
fucked
getting,
up is more like it. If you're
yeah,
really
there you
fucked
go.
up, yeah, I
Yeah.
had
Or if
70 symptoms. I was fucked.
if the spirit's really talking, trying to get your attention, trying to talk to you,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, buddy.
then
Yeah.
I feel like there is this level 3 where it's like kind of this like weird deep introspection thing, and figuring out what you've been emotionally addicted to. Like I again, like I love Dispenza. I think he's been connecting a lot of mind body stuff for me personally. The way he demonstrates these ideas really resonates with me, and to find that I had uh, psychological mind body addictions was really new to me. And to like
Yeah.
start and to even just take the first step of like, maybe that's true. Like maybe I do get more upset about this than I need to, is a big step to take, because you're biased. Like who would ever want to say, yeah, I'm overly
Right.
sensitive, or I'm way, I don't need to be as angry as I am. Like no
That's the
one would
hardest
ever,
thing.
yeah, no one would
You got
ever
to be
say
first,
that.
you got to be aware of old behavior patterns or the behavior patterns that led you here, not just the
Yeah.
stressors in life, but when you have an alarm orb that you're around, it changes how you react. So you have to catch behavior patterns. So how I talk about symptoms, how I, whatever it is, first catching it is hard, and then catching it constantly, and then stopping it constantly and changing it with what's better that supports your recovery. So that's one
Yeah.
of the big things. Like I could talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh yeah, right, catch old behavior patterns." And oh my God, then I felt so horrible. My pain was like, oh, so horrible. And then I was telling Sally that I think I have to go to the hospital because the pain went down. I'm like,
Hmm.
do you notice that you're talking about symptoms again and you're reaffirming
Hmm.
that you're you're in the danger and that you're sending messages of danger. Oh wow, I am doing that. Okay. 2 minutes later, oh my God, and then I felt pain coming up here. It was horrible. And they're repeating their old behavior pattern. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you did it again. All right, yeah. Because you're so hardwired to do it to be in a survival state to keep sending messages of danger that we got to be aware and keep interrupting it. And
Mm.
it can be exhausting, but that's what we have to do. And first step is just being aware. And that's difficult. That's one of the big things that I've noticed
Mm.
in my journey is catching my old behavior patterns
I'm
because
going
and
I'm
then
going through it right now. Like
yeah,
my left eye is getting better. And I'm still doing the medicine route. Like I know I'm starting to like, I'm not against it. I know that it's not going to cure me. Like my analogy has been like, I've been getting flat tires and I've been going to the auto shop and they're like, dang, your tire's screwed up. Let's put this patch on it. Let's put this patch on it. And I'm begging them, hey, why do I keep getting flat tires? And they're like, well, we don't know, or you have this disease or whatever. And that's kind of another way to say we don't know. You have X, Y,
yeah,
Z. Um, and that just happens. And what in reality is I had a bunch of nails in my driveway the whole time. I'm just pulling in and out of my driveway with nails, and then I keep getting holes in my tire. And I'm going to the shop expecting them to analyze everywhere I drive in a day and see where I
yeah,
have piles of nails in my own drive. They can't do that. It's not a good expectation to have on our healthcare system, and it's so easy to bash it, but it's just not humanly possible. I mean, if you want them to figure it out for you, then we would need to have them follow us around for a day or a week to really like help
yeah,
us figure it out, not sit in an office and pontificate for an hour. And I think that's a big deal, is like you have to be your own awareness
right.
of this and figure out, oh my God, look at your own driveway. Like if I keep getting punctures in my tire, my tire doesn't have a disease. I've got nails somewhere that I'm keep running over. Where are those nails? And I love your thing about the symptoms. Here I am like speaking like from this level of awareness, but I am a humble student because even now during my week, my eye is getting better. And when I talked to Taylor, my fiance, about it, I have a hard time telling her the ways in which it's getting better because I'm so conditioned to be like, I want to tell her, well, it's still not 100% yet. Like it's still kind of
Yeah,
blurry. Like I want her
yeah,
to know that I'm still screwed up and the symptoms serious.
right.
Because
You have
and
to
it's like, isn't that
you have to
weird though? I
build that
can't.
case. Like, look at exhibit B, exhibit F. Look at all the lawyers I have behind me. No, believe me, this is real. So you're kind of building the case because you want some sort of recognition that no, I am fucked up. You want credibility.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm still dealing, right now, I still deal with that every day. And so like the
Yeah.
challenge to me is like when, when we wake up in the morning or whatever, and we're having breakfast and it's like, how are you doing? Because she knows I'm going through this big flare up.
Oh yeah, that opens up a
That's,
can of worms.
that's, that's the practice, but it's also the opportunity and the practice. I need reps with that. I need to be
Right.
like, okay, every part of me wants to say all the things that are still wrong. Let
Right.
me not say any of that and say, and
I'm
not
good.
only and say that my eye's getting better. It's less blurry than yesterday. I don't have to lie because I also believe in like, and Dispenza says this too. With even in like a manifesting component, to use an example, you could say I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, whatever. But if your body is sick as shit and it's whatever, like
Yeah.
that thought doesn't go down, doesn't
That
go
doesn't
up the
mean anything.
brainstem,
You can
doesn't mean
say I'm
anything.
safe 1,000 times, doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, and so it's the same thing. There's this weird gray area that happens when I talk with Taylor now or anybody else with my symptoms. It's like, okay, the easy thing would be just do my regular deal and sit and talk about all the problems and let them know just how intense this is.
Oh, yeah.
The second easiest thing would be lie, just say everything's great, even though I feel like shit and like stuff's really wrong. But I feel like there's this subtle gray area where it's like, what is right? Like, what is going well that I actually can feel and believe? Because there's something there. And like,
Yeah.
for me, it's like, okay, my eye's a little less blurry today. It's a little less sensitive to light. That's a win. And I'm not, that starts, I think, making its way from the mind body. Like, I think that's where it's like, okay, I'm not just saying, oh my God, I feel amazing. This is the best day ever. And I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And it's also not acknowledging the crappy symptoms and going through that loop. It's like just riding that line of like, hey, I believe like, hey, my eye's getting better. That one, that's true. And two,
Right.
it's resisting and not falling into focusing on the bullshit.
Yeah. What I used to do is, because I tried that many times, what I would do is I talk with my mom and my wife. I go, don't ask me how I'm feeling, because then I'm gonna either lie or I'm gonna be forced to fucking tell you, and I don't want to feel that.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So then I'm like, so they're like, okay, we won't. That's fine. That's great. I'm like, just assume that I might be feeling like shit for my. Just assume that this journey, I'm gonna feel like shit almost every day. 99% of my journey is gonna be I'm gonna be making, um, eh, you know, exorcisms jealous. So just assume that. But I'm going to be trying my best to make it the best so that I don't put focus on if Tuesday my symptoms better, is Wednesday my symptoms not as good. So I'm analyzing it too much. I'm putting it on a pedestal and there's too much focus on that alarm, right?
Hmm.
When there's too
Hmm.
much focus on it, then the brain's like, that's what we need. This is good. We got focus on it. For me, it's just like, let's just put that out of the equation and let me live life. And how are you doing? I'm okay. I'm doing great. Okay, I'm engaging now, right? So there's no pedestal, there's no focus on symptoms, how it was Tuesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday or whatever, or
Yeah.
February or January, or right. Get that focus out of there and just engage in life. And then this will do its thing, let it do its thing, and it'll do whatever has to do. And then we engage, and then the baseline comes down, and then eventually we move forward. But it's funny that you mentioned the tire thing, because I have an analogy that I use too with tires. I talk about how, okay, imagine that you're in a Honda Civic, this little Honda Civic, right? And you're pulling this 747 constantly everywhere you go in the city, and you can't understand why the tires keep popping.
Mm.
You're like, what the fuck is going on? So you're
Mhm.
like, these aren't shitty tires. I think they're Goodyear. I don't know. So you keep replacing the tires every month. You keep getting another set of tires, and then the tire guy's like, "No, these are the best tires. I don't know, like why do they keep popping?" But I keep replacing the tires, and then my transmission starts to overheat, and then my engine starts to overheat, and then it starts to make sounds when it's going over these normal bumps. And then I realized, you know what? It wasn't the tires. I had to let go of that 747, and
Mm.
guess what? The tires work efficiently and actually was getting good fuel mileage finally.
Mhm.
And the Honda Civic is really reliable because they're reliable cars. and I was getting amazing fuel economy. When before it was a shit show. It was literally spending $100 a day on just filling up that tank, right? So then that for me, I was trying to paint the picture of letting go of that 747, the loads, the allostatic loads,
Yeah, yeah.
and bringing that baseline down. And that car will do what it's supposed to do efficiently without you having to micromanage it. Maybe put
Mhm.
some oil in, maybe, get some new tires, but you don't have to
Mhm.
get underneath and fix anything and, make sure that the oil filter is doing it. Everything works exactly the way it's designed, efficiently, peppy, whatever the Honda Civics do that are so good.
Yeah. I
It's
love
funny
that
that you
analogy.
got the,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that. Well, and then if you could carry that analogy further too, because I think there's something really profound in like we have to change our perspective of the healthcare system individually, like, and
yeah,
take more personal responsibility because the way things have gone, everything's specialized. Like if you have
yeah,
like, so to use your analogy that the tires keep popping, you're
yes,
gonna go to your GP and you're gonna say that, and they're gonna be like, I know exactly what you need. You need to go to a tire expert. And then they say you go to the
yeah,
tire expert. And then the tire expert, you come in and you're carrying the 747. And then the
yeah,
tire
yeah,
expert comes in with a mic with a little tiny like, microscope all over your tires, ignores
yeah,
the 747, ignores the entire rest of the car, and says, "Yep, these tires are screwed up. You're gonna need new tire." And like you're never gonna get to the root cause or the solve of any of the stuff. And eventually, if the tires get screwed up enough, then you need to go to an axle expert. And the axle expert's gonna, get down there with his
yeah.
microscope,
But
ignore
keep
the
giving you patches.
747.
Keep giving you
Yes.
patches for the tires. Special patches. Really good patches. They're not
Yep.
good for
The
you,
best.
but they
Yeah.
work for that month. You need to keep getting patches.
Well, and then the trippy thing is they're doing exactly what you're paying them to do. Like I said before, like they can't just go have sleepovers with you for a week and get to like stand next to you during your life and see the stressors and really understand the 747 you're carrying. Like
Right.
everyone's 747 is different and it's invisible. So it's like, you just gotta like understand the ride you're going on. And like I still take advantage of the tire experts every once in a while when my eyes screwed up.
Well,
I
you have
know, I know that the
okay.
747 is causing it.
That's okay. I tell
Um,
people too. Like I go, when you're starting this journey or in the beginning of this journey, stick to your coping mechanisms, your avoidance behaviors. Take what you need to take, just so that you can do the work and you're not overwhelmed and going crazy. Because
yeah,
if we're overwhelmed, you can't get into a flow zone. Like if I have to do visuals and I have a piercing pain somewhere, I'm not going to be concentrating and being in the zone of anything. I
yep,
won't be sitting in the dose. Yeah, right. So like if same with foods, I couldn't start training on foods for another year and a half. I had to have avoidance behaviors for a year and a half because if I started doing the training right away, that's putting up fuel on the fire.
yeah, totally. I'm a big fan of
So
that.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. And I know some of the TMS, the community, they're like, no, resume activity as normal. You can't be blah, 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 because you're reaffirming to the brain that there's something you're trying to fix. But it's like in the beginning, I think it's only temporary. This is not forever. We're just doing it for now so that you can function and do the work, bring your baseline down, empty this guy, and then eventually you get to a point where you can take that whatever coping mechanism it is away and then introduce yourself to a normal life without needing anything and be free.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I understand that we need them sometimes.
And that biologic medication that I kind of had that profound moment in, I'm like, I'm done taking this, when I was in that
Yeah.
pharmacy. I think I had been taking that medication for a few months and it had given me a lot of pain relief. And
Yeah.
that gave me energy to your point, to then
Right.
invest in, okay, there's something deeper going on here. Because when you're just like completely screwed up and you're in pain and you're suffering and your mental loops are going crazy, you have no energy
Right.
to give to like get yourself out. And so
Right.
I'm a
No.
fan too. And it's funny, I made a video on my YouTube years ago of how to inject that drug because when I
Oh,
Googled it, I mean, talk about like the tire analogy and all that stuff. If you Google, hey, my tires are popping, you're going to get all these like death sentences, you know what I mean? And then you're freaked out even
yeah.
more. And I remember Googling that medication and I found two videos of
Oh,
regular people injecting and they were like crying during it. And
yeah.
then I took it and,
Is it the
I'm
methotrexate?
no,
Methotrexate?
this methotrexate for me was oral, like just in a pill form, but the one I was
Right.
taking was called Imbrel. and it's a
Okay.
TNF inhibitor, that's immune suppressant. And
Yeah.
uh and so, I started taking that and I thought, you know what, after you start taking that for like a couple of weeks, I mean, at first it's like you're like you turn your bedroom into an operating room, you have your alcohol wipes, you wash your hands 10 times before or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after a few weeks of it, like I was literally on a road trip and I put it in a lunch bag with some ice, and then I just, we're at a truck stop and I just grab it and, do it. And it's like I was like, there's so much fear, like, and anxiety in this thing, even when you're trying to just get medical help. It's such a shame. And so it's funny, I made a video basically like doing the injection and just trying to put something out on the internet that wasn't scary. Hey, like, this doesn't hurt.
Right.
Here's how I'm doing it. It's actually giving me a lot of relief. And I still get comments, every other week on that video. I mean, oh, a video I have zero, I have no real
Yeah.
YouTube presence, right? The video has like 5,000 views now from people that have
Yeah.
just over the last year and a half or 2 years searched it. And they comment and they're like, oh my God, like, this really helped me. I was so stressed out. I had no clue that like it could be this
Right.
easy. This really helped me. And it's like, man,
What a
what a
different
shame.
reality.
Oh yeah, different
Yeah.
reality. And it's what a shame that we kind of get sucked into that. And at first I was like, once I got on the food thing, right? And I like thought that I was fixed. I was like, should I take that
Right.
video down? I'm not taking that medication anymore. And now I fixed the food. Should I tell everybody that it's food and they should stop taking their Imperol? And it's like, no, I think everybody needs to like take whatever they need to get some relief, and
Right.
then have the will to use that extra little energy and put it on themselves and some inner work and whatever their next phase is, whether that's changing their diet as a first step and doing functional
Yep.
medicine, or like maybe some people have their symptoms and they just go straight to the source with it and they like understand the mind, they start getting straight into mind
Right.
body without even doing food stuff, whatever it is. That energy is
But I
great
think
because
there
you
is a
can,
good thing. I think we need to go through all the bullshit. Like did that, bought the t-shirt, because you get really good
yeah.
perspective, whole picture. And it just makes more sense when you get to the mind body. You're like, this is it. It makes so much sense now.
Oh, that
When
symptom
before,
imperative, that like the symptoms
right.
moving, like when you've experienced the symptoms changing and moving, and
Yeah.
deep down, oh my God, I think that my gut issue, it feels almost like the inflammation had to go there because I treated the issue in my arm or whatever the thing was. And you just have that
Right.
gut feeling, like we feel our body, we kind of have this subconscious knowingness a little bit, even if we don't have the full awareness. And then when you read that from some people that are deeper down the rabbit hole, mind body,
Yeah. Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know that that's true. It's not
Right.
studying and having to believe it.
Oh,
I know it.
synchronicities everywhere.
Yeah.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
It just clicks.
And all of a sudden, like now I'm like, I rip through mind body books. I'm still doing it. I'm a humble student, like, and you've mentioned allostatic a couple of times. That's a new word to me. I'm reading a book I really like right now called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
it?
nice. No, no, no. I
Really
don't know.
great.
I
Oh
want
my gosh. I'm loving it so far. I'm probably like 5 chapters in. Western medicine, neuroscience, doctor perspective, which I love. I love the like when you get
yeah.
the Western medicine doctor perspective going like, hey, something deeper is going on here, and this is like the
Yeah.
medical proof I have for it. I love that. And this guy just goes through. I mean, it gets really nitty gritty into like the body and the biology of stress impacting and
Right.
causing inflammation. I mean, it's amazing, and the mind body thing is just it's there, and it's a Western medicine explanation of mind body, and I've
That's
been
what we
really
need, because the brain is always looking for evidence, and evidence for me, I've been conditioned to believe in, the complicated evidence, right?
Mhm.
I bring my stuff across as the average Joe guy. Get to the point. Yeah, this works because I said so. It works, and the alarm and the allostatic loads. But when you dig deep with a microscope, I can't explain it, right? Because for me, it's irrelevant. But I
Mhm.
think it's important that there are people there that can take the bullshit, uh, you know, uh, stuff that I don't that's not complicated, and get it and make it complicated so that you can really dig deep, and so that people can get the evidence. Because the brain looks for the deep evidence,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's great when Western medicine, like the real doctors, like really, I don't know, sift through it all, and they can put things together and go, well, what he's saying here is actually right.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean like tying stuff to the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and stuff like, to me, I think I've just that's really resonated with me. I had no
Yeah,
interest in biology or any of that stuff when I was younger and in school. And
yeah,
now I've had these really intense experiences, and I'm loving this guy's book, and he's talking about, you know, glucose levels and all sorts of different things, right? And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is making sense to me now. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic and how I feel it, And I mean, I felt my sympathetic nervous system this morning before my eye doctor appointment. That's why I had to email you, and we
yeah,
started a little bit later. I had an eye doctor appointment and I knew it was going to run late. And it's like,
yeah.
you know, I had my sympathetic up this morning just thinking about life and all the crap and the eye doctor
Right,
appointment. What's he gonna say and what's my next, whatever and all this stuff. And I
right,
could feel it, and it once you kind of like it helps me with my awareness of it, because it's not just, oh, I'm stressed. It kind of makes things interesting. It's like I'm witnessing my biology acting. Like, oh, my
right,
sympathetic nervous system is hyped up right now. Oh, it's going to generate these cells. And then when I like further my knowledge in the biology of it, you can connect, you have to connect so many dots to know, oh, this is biologically going to make me worse, my body worse. And then
right,
boom, it's like, that's good motivation for me to snap out of it. You know what I mean? And not like
right.
go down, like get out of the thought loop, get out of the whatever that thing
Right.
is.
Yeah, no,
It's a
it's all
trip.
training. It's these are all some of these things are all opportunities to learn more. It's all a learning phase that that I had to go through. All the negative and the positive, like everything was learning. And it took me 3 years. But the thing is, it wasn't just the 3 years. It was looking back, my whole life all of a sudden became the learning thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just all of a sudden it's 30 years, right? Because it all makes sense now. The tools you learned in those 3 years, now everything backs it up. It's crazy.
I was at, so this might be fun conversation too. I mean, I love what you just said. I was at
Yeah,
I did the Dispenza week-long advanced meditation retreat thing. And I
yeah,
thought I love Dispenza. I love his books. I think he's great at explaining mind body.
yeah,
And I read all his books. I watched every podcast he was on for the last 6 months. Convinced my fiance to go with me on this retreat. I feel like it would be really cool to go together. And I'm like, oh, the hotel it's at has a water park attached. We're just gonna go meditate. It'll be chill. We'll go to the water park. We'll have like a week,
yeah.
like we're all stressed out about wedding, pre-wedding stuff and all that stuff anyway, and work. It was not that way at all. It was the most intense thing me and her had ever done in our entire life. 6 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Hardcore,
Oh,
long, hour and a half, multiple hour and a half long meditations. Um, in
his
between,
breathing stuff is
oh yeah,
so hard. Holding your
yeah.
breath for like 18 hours. Fuck that. I
So
tried that. Oh man.
it's a trip, and I was like, Taylor. I had no clue what I was getting us into. I did not know that and in between the meditations, you're getting lessons in quantum physics, and like
Yeah,
all sorts of stuff, right? Now,
yeah.
I loved it. It was probably one of the most profound experiences I've had in my life. Not because I had some magical, mystical moment in a meditation, but it really helped open my eyes a lot, even more to the mind-body connection. And I love like the
Right.
science he's brought into it. And the meditation was really, I think I wasn't giving that enough credit. I had done the journaling stuff. And I felt good about that. But the journaling to me, I think sometimes I would just loop in written form, if that makes sense,
Right.
like
Yeah,
negative
yeah,
thought loops, right? And
yeah.
the
Yeah.
meditation, personally for me, I needed that, and it's been a big game changer for me in practicing quieting that mind and being able to get out of loops. Because if you could say, "Oh, I'm in a loop, I'm in a loop." Well, I've been in a loop and then been aware that I'm in the loop and still not been able to get out of the loop. I had to like, you
Right.
know what I mean? I'm still stuck there. And it's because I don't think I don't my mind, I haven't conditioned my mind to be strong enough to shut that off, to actually like turn those
That was my
thoughts
missing piece.
down.
Because what I used to do is I used to try to distract from my thoughts. I used to try to keep busy, count
Hmm.
backwards, uh, you know, list the things that are in my view. Oh, look at that light. I wonder how many watts that is. Blah 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 blah. And what
Mm.
I and when I was doing my my journey, I got stuck at that point. And the more I resisted, because what you resist persists, the more you do this, the bigger the alarm gets, right? Because it's really forcing you to try to get your attention to the perceived danger. But when you're going, no, I don't want to listen to that. No, no, no. It has to try harder and harder to get your attention. So what
Yeah.
I had to learn to do is allow the thoughts to do their thing. Let it do their thing. Acknowledge it, go, thank you. Go, whatever the thought is. If it's a what if thought, your gut's gonna explode, um, you're gonna die tomorrow, or whatever the thought is, it's always gonna be something you don't like. It's not gonna be daffodils and pussycats. So I had to allow it to be there, and I started to agree with the thoughts because I really wanted to take away the resistance. So I went even more extreme. I'm like, yeah, my gut's gonna explode. That's true. You know what? Thank you for letting me know that my gut's going to explode. And I hope it
Mm.
explodes tomorrow and the next
Mm.
day and next week, every day. Actually, the whole month will be dedicated for my gut to explode. And that's what we're going to do. And then I would engage, right? And I would bring it with me, the thought. I'm like, you can come with me
Mm.
because I never wanted to think that I'm closing the door. I always wanted to have an open door policy. So wherever we go, I'm doing the dishes. Oh, you need a minute? All right. So I'd allow it. I picture that thought as a cloud passing through my chest or my throat. I'm like, okay, now we're going to engage. While I'm walking, of course, my thoughts were always trying to over here, over here, no, over here, right?
Mm.
I'd be like, and I would give it a second and process it, allow it, do your thing. Okay, let's keep going. We're engaging again. And it became, in the beginning, it became a 9 to 5 job. But eventually, I got better at it, and I was able to, like you scroll on your news feed, whatever it is, you see something negative, you go, oh, cool. You keep going. I was able to go, oh, thank you, and engage, and it would leave me alone. And
Mm.
eventually, because in the beginning, if you resist something, it persists. That brings the baseline up because you're in survival, and it sends more alarms, and you get into the cycle,
Mm.
right? So what I had to do was allow it, let it do its thing, let it run wild. You're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna be triggered. You're gonna be at a 10, right? But eventually, the more you do it, it's gonna go to a 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. The more exposure you get triggered, allow it, and that allows the baseline to finally calm down because you're not fighting it. Because when you fight it, it goes up. When you leave it
Yeah.
alone, let it do its thing, it calms down. When it calms down and this starts to empty, you start turning off alarms, and the brain goes, "We're not in a survival state anymore. We don't have to send any more alarms. I think we're good." And then I finally had freedom in my mind. All the chatter stopped,
Yeah.
all the looping thoughts stopped. But it took me, I think it was almost a year and a half of starting the right methods. Just took a year and a half of just doing the right methods, and eventually I had peace in my mind. And whatever you do here, the body, I found if I when I got a hold of my OCD and that stopped, my body regulated itself. So I didn't have to worry about my body. I started up here, and everything followed suit.
What do you do now? What's your kind of meditation routine now?
I still do visuals. I still do my visuals, and I elevate with my visuals. I also get downloads, right? So
Mhm.
I'll do my visuals of what I'm going to do for the week, and I'll manifest stuff, and then sometimes I'll get a synchronicity or a download. Oh, you should do this. Well, I'm like, holy! I have my freakouts because it's amazing, right? And that's
Do you
it.
have a physical
I'll,
response? When you say you get downloads, do you have a physical response?
no, it's more of like some sort of synchronicity of or a thought, because I'll ask questions of like, can you give me some clarity? Blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden I'll get the answers to what I need to know. Or after my visual, I'll go throughout the day and I'll see synchronicities telling me, yes, you're on the right path. Because I'll ask, am I on the right path? Am I blah, blah, blah? And throughout the day, I'll get messages of synchronicities, right? And then they'll tell me, oh, and they're really funny, the way it works, right?
Mm.
And then you trust them. You don't go, oh, that's just a coincidence. You start to trust them, and then you move through it quicker. You
Mm.
gain them, you take them for what they are quicker, and you move through what you want, and you get what you want quicker. It's pretty cool. So I used everything that I did for recovering from OCD and anxiety, and I use that for manifesting because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You allow the energy to do its thing, and then you engage and you manipulate it to go this way. Instead of stopping the energy constantly, it causes more of a storm, and you don't get what you want. You get what you don't want,
Yeah.
right? So
Wow.
it's the same rule, same rules.
That's what I love that you said that because, even at Dispenza's event the other week, um, the manifesting part and all that wasn't on my mind. I'm just you know what I mean? Like I'm just dealing with this symptom
Right.
crap and I've been dealing with it with all my life. I'm feeling like I'm making progress. I want to go another level. I know that there's still stuff kind of lingering in my body. I'm, I didn't care about the manifesting stuff and I didn't care about the
Oh yeah.
mystical experiences. I just wanted to like not feel in pain, And
Yeah.
so it's funny though, because once I started understanding more of the science behind it and all that, all of a sudden now I'm excited about this journey because, like you said, it's the
Yeah.
same process. I was just unconsciously manifesting bad shit. And
Yeah.
I'm very excited about learning how to take advantage of the process and maneuver it into my favor. Like I think
Right.
that's the light at the end of the tunnel for me with this process is like starting to orient and change my life in a positive way and manifest things. Like I was only focused on reducing pain, and now like that's still like a top priority for me. But now I'm also excited about like, oh, I think I
Right.
can
What you're gonna
change my
learn.
life. I think I can change
Right.
my life. I think I can manifest certain things in
Yeah.
my life.
And
And
the
I'm
only
really,
way And the way
well,
to
I
get
was,
these golden nuggets is to feel like shit, to have the symptoms, have the pains, have,
yeah,
all the things that you fear, all your nightmares, you need them to come true constantly every day so that you become indifferent. And when you become indifferent and you're like, meh, you become Aaron Neville, meh, right?
mm,
When you don't care anymore, that's when you have the power. That's when things settle down and the life's in your hands. The world is in your hands. You can manipulate it how you want because you don't have fear driving anything. You're in control.
yeah, man. I love what you just said because it's like if you're sitting there and you're like, all my nightmares are coming true, but you can come to a moment where you're like, if my nightmares can come true, can my dreams come true? Like
Yeah.
that's a really powerful
Right.
freaking moment. Like
That's
just
why I
now
always,
starting to believe that.
yeah, with symptoms, I would ask for more, right?
Mm,
You're the one that takes the steering wheel, and eventually you become indifferent with it because I think exposure is one of the biggest things that was in my journey. Exposure, exposure, exposure. You become indifferent, and then you can manipulate the energy the way you want because nothing's nothing's ordering you around. You order it around. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like to wake up and be like, I've been creating all the stuff that I'm stressing about now, career or whatever. I
Yeah.
created this life. I
Yeah.
created it.
Yeah.
I had a thought when I was in junior high watching YouTube videos. Oh my God, I could make my own videos. I could get paid to make videos. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Boom. Now I'm 30 and I'm, making commercials for a living and whatever. I'm stressed out about some commercial project here or this one that's going to come up in a week or two from now. It's like, and I just subconsciously was acting as if like these were obstacles being thrown at me from the universe as punishment. I
No.
created this
Yeah.
job. I created this thing. So like, I love your points, your perspective of manipulating this energy and figuring out ways to divert it and turn it back into manifesting
Yeah.
stuff you're creating. Because I'm a big believer now that you're a co-creator in your life with
Right.
the universe and
Totally.
whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Well,
that.
I gotta say this has been fucking awesome. Good, great interview. You know what? I gotta have you back in maybe 6 months to a year,
Yeah,
and then we'll see where you're at from and what you've learned, what you saw. So this will be like a journey through recovery episode, and then we'll do another one, and then whatever it takes until you're recovered, and then we'll have the full on success story. So a little series. What do you think?
love it. Got me in.
All right, let's do it. Awesome. All right, so I guess if you have any links of anything that you want to share, any of the books or anything, I put that in the description. The
Yeah,
zebra book,
yeah.
send that to me in an email, and
Okay.
then I'll post it. And then yeah, we'll keep in touch. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Sounds great. Yeah, great to meet you. Love talking with you.
Same here. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.